You ever been in bad culture on your yellow brick road during your journey? Well, join us in this episode where I've got Brainless and Heartless with me so that we can talk a little bit about how to get to the other side of the rainbow. Hey, welcome to another episode of the EMS Wizard podcast. And I think it's important for us to discuss a little bit about preparation for things that we haven't done yet. Like if you're in management, if you're in leadership, until there's just this whole big book on this is how you do it and this is why, which doesn't exist necessarily, we're going to have to come up with, some ways that we have to prepare ourselves. There's lots of things that you end up, the skill sets aren't the same. I'm talking about paramedics that end up having to be in, positions of management and leadership and where they end up as far as, they end up in they end up as an FTO. Eventually, they're going to be in their very first FTO meeting. And what do they do with that? And do you think there's preparation for that? A lot of it's cultural based, but all the way on up to being a chief and having to present to county commissioners on the night that there's 50 to 100 to 200 citizens sitting out there against something you're asking for. How do we, Terry, for lack of better words, how do we read a room that we're not in?
They're
I
probably going to be
think
doing like that video back behind you. They're probably all running away from it right now.
correct.
No doubt.
Correct. In fear, I don't even know what. Anyways, now you've brought my attention to his background. Sometimes I want to have seizures with his backgrounds. I think, I think you take the Walter A. Meads approach, and I think because Walter, out of the three of us, Walter started having children, John, when you stopped having children. And I think it's a lot like preparing your kid because one day,
Not how I said it, but okay.
Walter is going to walk his beautiful daughter down the aisle and she's going to start a family of her own. She's going to
Probably going
have
to be 100.
100
100
weddings,
Walters or
100.
100 daughters?
Yeah.
100. I'm going to be 100 years old.
Oh,
You're 88 years old right now. So, so I think, to pick on Walter, who's usually not with us and he's not dead. I think it's like being a parent. Hey, one day your kid's going to be on their own. They're going to be in their own house. And who are you going to call? The Ghostbusters? No, you have to be self-reliant. You have to be prepared. And a statement that I make a lot of times when I teach, I don't know if I've been per se quoted on it, but being a better parent makes me a better supervisor. Being a supervisor makes me a better parent. I think the two work together, and it doesn't matter if you don't have kids. Are you that father or mother figure? Are you that auntie or uncle that's raising somebody, grandparents, that maternal figure for somebody? I think it's the same thing. Walter,
How do I justify that then? Because I quit being a supervisor when I had a kid.
it's because you knew your kid. You knew the DNA of your kid, and so you knew that
you
kid.
quit being a supervisor, but you didn't quit being in leadership or a manager. You,
True,
you just changed the environment you were leading and managing in.
true.
So I think I think back to a lot of different things that we end up putting ourselves in. Um, there's not a one size fits all. I think of some things that we've said before about if you've seen one EMS system, you've seen one EMS system, that and the culture's changed to that, to that environment, and sometimes by vote, right? And you can change your entire culture, political landscape, and the way that they spend money inside of a county just off of a vote, right? And then it ends up, you now have to, it's like I said, reading that room that you're not going to be in and say, how am I going to sell my budget? How am I going to sell a capital improvement project? How do I? We spend a lot of time learning the things we love, and let's take this from a very, I become an EMT point of view. When I go on and I become an EMT, I start liking and not liking things in EMS. And I have lots of influences that may attribute to that. It could be my mentor, it could be something I saw on TV, a YouTube video, a personal experience, a piece of equipment. There's things I like and don't like as I'm going to be an EMT. Something motivates me, I become an advanced EMT or a paramedic, and I increase that realm of things I hate or love. By the time I'm in management, those things that I hate and love are the reason why I'm there. And, because I've either loved management or whatever and want to do more to make an impact, or, I hate the way things are done and I want to make a difference. So I feel like I can do that. But once I'm there, um, probably a subject matter expert at that point of telling you all the reasons why I love something, why I like something, or why I want something to be a certain way. But I doubt very seriously we put a lot of effort, and when I say we, I'm talking about EMS industry, we put a lot of effort in trying to consider the other viewpoint, the other things that someone else may love or that I don't necessarily understand or like, to think about across that table to say, how did someone at a very similar situation that we were all in, and that is we didn't know EMS and we learned it and we ended up where we are. But there's differing viewpoints, and we spend a lot of time. I think managers, leaders, whatever, can spend a lot of time focusing on those things they don't understand. They're listening for when's my next point that I can debate, when's my next point I can throw in there, versus trying to understand why someone else on the other side thinks the way they do. And that makes us ill prepared to be, to go. We can only go in a room and fight the fight we know, is what we feel like. And the winners are the ones that can go in there and appease to both. I say both sides, but there may be three or four sides of something. And when you can start reading that other room that you're not present in, I think you prepare yourself better, right? You don't agree with that, Terry? You don't think that's the case?
Yeah, cautiously optimistic about it.
Walter, you're kind of all crickets on this too. Or are you just giving that deep thought as to, I wonder if, or no, I utterly oppose this viewpoint.
I'm thinking about that right now.
Well, you think of each scenario that you go in. We tend. All right, let's take it down to a paramedic level. If I get dispatched to a chest pain call, when I go in, I've kind of when I'm young, I've narrowed my view down to heart attack, and experience will teach me over time that I need to
Cocaine,
expand that to include so many other
cocaine,
different things.
cocaine.
Right. I begin to expand that view to so many different things. So as I get experienced, I have not just someone's having a heart attack, but lots of things that can cause, chest pain.
Cocaine.
Uh, and we don't spend enough, we don't it's hard for us to argue away from once we've got enough of what we think it is. ST elevation and contiguous leads, pain radiating. You fill in all the little blanks and stuff that make us say that's the thing. That's got to be it or whatnot. So we're kind of poised and taught to think once we think we got it, that's what we're sold on. That's the protocol we hold on to and stuff. So that's the skill set of a paramedic. And being in EMS management, that's not the same skill set. So when we take that
How is it
skill
not?
set
It's the
and
same skill set.
what?
It's the same skill set.
No, it's absolutely a completely different skill set.
I think it's the same skill set.
But well, what you
You,
think?
you got to ask questions. You got to get your medical history. Hey, you have to do your due diligence ahead of time when you're going into the situation. I mean, you might have certain things to say, hey, in this neighborhood, dare I say, certain stereotypes, hey, I'm more likely or less likely to need law enforcement or encounter this issue. But I don't know. I mean, to be argumentative for a second, I don't know how different the skill set is. You're asking questions. It's that rapport. Hey, I've heard medical directors talk about so and so, we get all of these patient compliments on them. They're kind of an okay paramedic, so and so is one of the smartest paramedics that we have in this system, but golly gee, they have the worst bedside manner in the world. So I don't know, but being nice to people,
No, I'd argue that, a matter of fact, in management, that's where you learned at the time that it isn't the nice to people. It's in the patient care scenario, you may live in this world where the customer is always right, but when you get into management, you start to now delve into why the customer could be wrong. And
yeah.
so I still
But how
say
you,
it's not the same. It's because if it was the same skill set, then guess what? Your best paramedics would be your best managers.
it's just their ability to make the shift, and they're no longer taking
What
care
shift? It's the same skill set. What shift?
because you're not taking care of one patient, you're taking care of all of the patients.
I
So,
feel
so,
awkward.
so it could be something like triage then. A really good incident commander would probably, someone on an incident where they had multiple patients to triage. Those are the ones that would make good managers. That's what you're saying.
It's Walter, mom and dad are fighting. It's not
Right,
terribly
exact. That's
different.
exactly what I was thinking.
It,
It's exactly what I was thinking.
it's not terribly different than triage because let's take your statement of a good paramedic. You might be a great paramedic with one patient, but hey, Walter, weren't you doing TSOPs? Weren't you doing TSOPs a month ago? With some students, and as soon as we drop, it doesn't matter whether it's the brand new EMT, somebody's going from EMT to advanced, which I know some places don't use that, or hey, you're that paramedic. You do a really great job taking care of one patient that's right in front of you. But as soon as you have three patients, oh, six patients, five or six patients. Now that's an MCI. How do I manage that? And I've seen some really smart paramedics. I've been had the opportunity to go do some panels in some other agencies, and some folks that I was like, man, this person's got to knock it out of the ballpark. And it was like peanuts with Lucy pulling the football away, and they ended up on their back because they missed kicking that football because they just didn't know
Two
how to
different
manage
skill
that
set.
MCI.
They're totally prepared for the skill set of being a paramedic, and then you go in and give them some management stuff, and they can't do it because it's a different skill set.
Yes.
And and to me, I mean, and here's the thing, I've seen that, and it's probably because I've had a lot of those 1, 2 year pins along the way, and you have been stuck in the Outer Banks, probably in the mouth of a shark, drugged to the bottom of the ocean, looking for Davy Jones' locker. But that's neither here nor there. The thing is you are, exposed to your thing. How many murders did you have? See, if I was talking to Antoine Brown, how many murders did you have? He'd be like, yesterday. You're like, well, if you count on both hands, in my whole career, I probably don't even fill
It's
out
still
one
just on
hand,
one hand.
just one
It's
hand,
still just one hand.
right?
And
So your exposure's different. And listen,
Terry, I got more than you have on that then.
oh, easily,
easily.
easily. Yeah.
Yeah. But I mean, the thing is I don't, I think it is, I totally believe it's two different skill sets. So you have your argument. Here's the thing, even if it's not, even if it's one skill set that transition, whatever, we don't have to agree on that. What you do have to agree on does say that there's no, you have to prepare for conversations or to sell or explain things and you don't know what the questions are yet. Man, in EMT class and paramedic and whatever, we give you the thing we're going to grade you on. Here's our evaluation form. Look at these, memorize these things, do these things. We give you that. That don't happen in management and EMS. You go in and you could potentially be asked numerous questions about things that you may or may not know the answer to, and you are either going to try to make up an answer, the things you would tell somebody else don't do, just be honest, or you're going to say things like, I'll get back with you on that and not do it, which is another mistake. Or you're going to have the answers and their follow-up questions, they're going to box you in because they're trying to get something out of you that to prove that, either to discount what you're asking for or to maybe promote something else that they're trying to get. And I just think what loss happens through the mistakes that are made from that. And I think preparation to that is the key here.
And I think that preparation is just like, hey, you have a chest pain patient. You have that patient that's having that huge STEMI, And nobody in class, there was never, and maybe this is a perfect sim lab day, experience. Nobody in class said you have this chest pain patient that is, checks all of the boxes. They have hypertension, they have whatever, high cholesterol, they have a cardiovascular disease history, family history, and they're having the huge STEMI right in front of you. The destination plan says put them on a helicopter and send them to the hospital to go get that interventional wisdom done to them. And you say, sir, ma'am, I need you to get in this helicopter. And they make the statement to you, because this is coastal North Carolina problems. Hey, I was born on this island. I'm going to die on this island. How do you convince that person they need to go to the hospital? I'm just going to go see Dr. Jimmy down the road because he's been my doctor my whole life. Why do I need to go? Why do I need to go to that hospital? Why do I need to go get hours away from home? I think it's the same skill set.
How good a paramedic you are has nothing to do with talking to a patient to get them to go or not. You could be the best paramedic out there, but not that great at communicating to get somebody, especially if you're talking about some of these areas where the people that are paramedics in those
Are you
areas,
stuttering? Are you so upset you're
the
stuttering?
people that are in the coastal areas in the Outer Banks don't even live there. The culture they're exposed to is on their work day. And so that's when they know. So when they come across one of these citizens that are like lifetime on that area and they're not going to move, they're like, man, let me just take my butt back to XYZ County,
And
where
so I would say that is what makes success versus not success.
no, a good manager and a good leader is going to be able to have that conversation regardless of the area they're in. That is my point. Is you stick a good manager or leader in Texas, California, New York, or North by God, Carolina, you will see the same conversation that can happen because they're prepared for that room they're not in. Why don't Walter say anything? At this point in time,
I don't.
Walter, you should have Googled
I,
everything you
I
need to
don't.
know.
I don't know.
Sharp GPT, Walter.
Right. You ain't joking. Jesus have mercy. I mean, you even John stuttering, Terry. Dag.
It's probably my memory
Do
or
what?
probably my
It
memory or
is.
brain. I can't remember the
Yeah,
words or whatever.
John forgot.
Oh my God.
So, well, Walter, let me ask you this: do you think a good that person who's going to be going into that room, maybe an ability to argue both sides of the coin, maybe stir the pot a little bit?
Stirring what pot? The one that we currently have or a different pot?
In the pot I just stirred 2 minutes ago, where I thought I was going to be on the phone with Christina saying, "Hey, how's the search for Johnny's baseball coach going?"
Right, exactly.
And she says, "He has one." Well, yeah, about that.
Right. Uh, it is, I don't even know where to go with it. I don't even know where to go with this. I don't even know what street to turn on to go with this with you guys. Um, I don't know.
Let me ask you this. Walter, you're the
Ask me,
director. You're
ask me a question.
you're a director of EMS, and
No.
you're having to go and um, you've got to make a case that you need new ambulances, and you are smart enough to know that the Parks and Rec they want to build a new skate park and a dog park, and the sheriff is wanting new patrol cars and to redo a jail or whatever. So you're competing for some money. We'll just say it that way. Do you think you go in there? Do you think you go in there with the mindset of I'm just going to state the case of what I need and leave it to a group of people to decide what's the best interest? Or do you think there's some importance in going and finding out a little bit of background as to why the ambulance piece or the thing that you want is more important than the sheriff, more important than Parks and Rec, and you do that by knowing how your politicians communicate and stuff. Do you put in that work to figure out What have they voted on? What has their viewpoints been in the past? What has been their thing? Or do you
I think
just
you
pretty
take
much
some of that. I think you take some of that into consideration. But so Terry's argument is when you go into somebody's residence as a paramedic and you know what type of individual they are or what culture that they may have, you go in there with the same thing.
right? So if you so let's take the death notification piece
Hope,
we talked
hope,
about.
hope. Terry, he said you're right. He said you're right, Terry. Did you hear that?
No, no. Let's
I
take
heard it. I'm putting it in my calendar right
no,
now.
no, no.
Okay,
Okay.
just checking.
I'll tell you what, since you take your Dare County death notification, man, the way that you do that, go to Rocky Mount, North Carolina, Durham, North Carolina, use the way you do that there. You know, I know, and anybody else listening will tell you that if you go in there giving death notification differently and expecting that same outcome, you're going to get something just a little bit different. And guess what? You walk out saying, dang, I need to do that differently next time. That's my point. As a paramedic, if we just the skill set of a paramedic is go in, try some stuff. If it don't work out, we'll just retry some stuff that we've learned. Don't do that. Don't do that. And that's what I'm saying. The skill set of a manager is to not make those mistakes so that you walk in and say, well, I know what happened last time. Look, when budgets are on the line, people's jobs can be cut. When you're facing these things, you ain't got time. You can't go in and make those mistakes and say, sorry, five guys who are getting cut, and we're not going to have an ambulance for the next year. I made a political mistake because I didn't read the room because I wasn't in it because I came to it like a paramedic and tried to prove my protocol and it didn't work out.
I think it's like my background too. And Walter all the time is gallivanting. I enjoy his Facebook and seeing all the different sunsets and concerts and Mrs. Sheehy even commented on Walter living his best life like a week or two ago. And I think
Work
you can
hard
say
work hard to play hard.
correct. And I think you got to put some research in on it. Just like ain't nobody going to the Teddy Bear Motel and staying the night out there. Uh,
Some somebody's going there to go spend the night. I just don't know who, and they probably are not coming out when they're done.
Correct. Correct. Like the place that nightmares are made out of. And
Correct.
I think just like if you're going on a vacation, whether it's a cruise, whether it's, hey, I'm renting a house, am I doing Airbnb, what type of hotel? Hey, you have to do the exact same thing with your politician. You got to do some research on them and you have to be prepared for the unexpected. Nobody expects the Spanish Inquisition. Surprise is one of its chief weapons. And so you've got to do some research before you go to the Teddy Bear Motel. You got to do some research before you go to that board of commissioners. And to take your death notification, you have to read the room as you're walking into the room. You have to do your
If
research.
you want to make a mistake, dude, if you're coming from Kill Devil Heels, you don't know how to make death notification in Rocky Mount, North Carolina.
I'm from DC. Walter?
I hope I'm not going to Rocky Mountain, North Carolina to make a death notification. First of all,
Yeah, but
that's
some
the
of our
first thing.
listeners do
That's
is
the
the
first
thing.
thing that I hope I'm not.
Okay. Well, the thing is that that's the whole point.
So my question is, as a new leader or as a new supervisor or as a new whatever, and you're stepping to foot into this new role that you're in, and just say you're going to be in a new role today in a new area, how do you how do you learn all those things without making some mistakes? Because you're going to make mistakes. So
Nothing I've
how do you do that without making mistakes? How do you do that?
I wasn't saying that you wasn't going to make mistakes. I said it was a different skill set to go out and prepare for that.
So
There's no protocol on how to talk to and present your case. There's not a protocol.
so does making mistakes help you learn?
100%. Does reading books help you learn?
25%.
You
It
think
depends on the book you're reading.
That's why I said depends on what 25%. Depends
depends
on
on the
what book.
mistake you're making too, but I thought we were just going
Right.
to talk in generalities.
Yeah, I mean, because I've got the
We're just
script.
giving you a hard way to go now because we got you stirred up and worked up. So we're giving you a
Yeah,
hard way to go now.
I got a book here. It's called the script from Star Trek II, The Wrath of Khan. But that's probably that book is not going to do me much benefit in patient care delivery. Oh, what else I got here? The Madonna biography. Not
We're not
mine.
talking
God
about the
bless.
books in your room. What we're talking about, that's the different skill set. A paramedic does not come to work studying on what am I doing today as a paramedic that might be different from the last shift I was in. That there's enough there to
Do,
navigate that.
do
But a
you think
man,
all managers do that?
that is my point, is no, they don't, and they should. Managers should absolutely be indwelled in knowing where the Medicaid money stands right now, where Medicare is going, where telehealth lies, where all these things are, how EMD can be utilized. They need to start learning to read that room. They're not in that room. They're not there.
Some of
So
them are
that
playing on some of them are playing on Facebook.
maybe. I mean,
I,
but I'm just saying that that's what they have to do, and no, it's completely a different skill set. And here's the thing about it is, if you're a paramedic, I can con ed you to death on what you need to do better in XYZ scenario based on these things. I don't think we con ed each other to death in management, not to death. Nope, nope. We hopefully we get the goodness of the heart for what over the last few years, 4,000, 5,000 people to come and take programs. That's goodness of their heart. Very few are forced to be in that room when we teach or take these other, the academies and stuff and do these things. It's not really forced, it's opportunity. But we don't con ed management to death. And because we don't, it's always what mistake did we make so we can talk about it. Who did you write somebody up wrong? Did we not enforce a policy like we're supposed to? We need to write a new rule. Here your system plan or an education plan's due, so we need to write that and stuff. Those are the easy low hanging fruit, and we call ourselves a manager at the end of the day. No, go sell somebody on telehealth. Go change your system. Do that. Are you prepared for that? Are you ready to go and have a conversation with your medical director to turn the tide if necessary? Most of those medical directors are pretty hip to the day's world. I mean, like it used to be. But I mean, so I think that's a whole different landscape, and it's different from county to county. So no, these may not be where you live problems, but there's certainly, and I can tell you that skill set hurts some cultures in EMS and helps others because they've recognized that skill set is different.
Parents. I'm going to be the referee.
I know, right? You're doing a terrible job as a referee. Let me just first say that. I actually don't disagree with 90% of what John is saying.
I'm gonna
I
bite your ear off.
mostly just like to my toes are
What was
sensitive.
that?
Don't
What was that?
step on my
Turner and
toes.
Hooch.
No, it was Mike
Tyson.
Tyson. I'm serious. I'm serious here. My big love to you. I think.
We have different Mike Tysons.
Oh, my bad. um, so I think the question is, how do we, because what you said, to turn it right back, death notification is going to be different in if we do micro if we do a microclimate of Edgecombe County and Dare County, North Carolina, and death notification is going to be different. I think funding is going to be different as well. To talk about Medicaid, Medicare dollars, those are going to be different as well. And so we talk about funding sources or some of the costs. Um, we can look at all 100 plus one. We factor in tribal EMS, and even some of our guests that we've talked with in past episodes, or some of the folks we've talked about coming on in the future things. You've got some ginormous counties in the state of North Carolina, versus the state of Rhode Island. There are counties in the state of North Carolina that are bigger than that entire state. Delaware is probably another one. Three counties in that state, and so, anyways, back to your thing, John. I don't disagree with it, but I think you need to be educated to know where are your dollars that support your system coming from. I think we need to be knowledgeable about things like, hey, Medicaid and Medicare, how is that going to affect my agency? And recognizing that this might look different for me than it does for my neighbor, than it does for somebody who is in Western North Carolina, in Nash County, and that's gonna look a little bit different than Cherokee County. But you have to, kind of what's a theme almost in every episode, You got to show up. You got to sit down at the table. You got to have the conversation. As my predecessor used to say, you got to have that big radar on, and you got to be looking at what are the problems that are over the horizon. What are the things that are just popping up on the horizon? I think the problem is how do you entice people to want to do it? Because it's not fun, it's not sexy, it's not cool, you know. But if we look at Walter's picture, that beautiful sunrise, that sun's looming on the horizon. It's coming up. That big ball of fire is going to be in the sky. And what are you going to do? Be like, where'd this big ball of fire come from?
Paramedics only go into people's houses when they're invited. And in EMS leadership management, you go into the houses you're not invited in, you know. I mean that's the thing. And so a paramedic is like, I don't need to go somewhere till called. It's reactive. You know, if we take that same mentality in there, you're gonna lose money every single time. You're gonna lose people every single time. You're gonna lose credibility. You're gonna lose respect in that position as well. So I mean, you have to, and that's just my whole point. Is it you say show up. I agree with that. We have to show up, but you also have to show out. Show up and show out because if a paramedic just comes into a room they're uncomfortable with and they sit down and they're talking some business that they ain't got nothing to do with, a paramedic gonna sit there and they're just gonna shut up. They ain't gonna say nothing. They gonna listen. They're gonna be like, and they gonna leave it alone. They're gonna think of a lot of nice little, probably inappropriate jokes and things to say that'll be funny, and they may even put them on Facebook or share them with a friend. But that's the problem is paramedics ain't they're not walking in. So anyway, anyway,
But I don't think that happens in every state because if we look, or every county rather, because if we go to what makes Edgecombe successful with their community paramedicine, I don't know the intricacies of their system, but what makes them so effective is that relationship that their community paramedic program manager, he is out there building that their CP2 community paramedic 2 is out there building. And I don't know. I mean, maybe it's worth having him on the podcast to have a conversation about what makes him so successful because I think he's probably knocking on some doors, maybe where he's not invited to have some conversations with some folks. I don't know.
I think that as you kicked it in with that is, you know, 101 systems, all completely different, different counties, different fundings, different, you know, different politics, different county management, different, I think it's even, this is one thing that I say about EMS. EMS is very young. EMS is not like fire. And I look at our counterparts across the state line in Virginia. And when you talk about here in North Carolina, and I'm going to use our rural Eastern North Carolina, when you start saying, I'm going to have to add 4 new people to staff an ambulance, I'm going to have 8 more people to staff an ambulance, that throws county politics into whirlwind. Oh my God, where are we getting people for 8 new people at? And then you look across the border and they say, we need to hire 8 new people. And they're like, drop a bucket. Part of the problem is they are used to that. Our North Carolina systems are not used to that. And I'm going to say, John, look at Edgecombe. They went from a volunteer based system to a paid county system. Look at Camden when they left Pasquotank and went to their own system. Look at, was it Pamlico that still has the rescue squad, I think, that runs Pamlico? So,
Yeah.
there's so much intricate makeup that it's hard, for someone to do that just by saying, hey, let's better do it. They don't even have a full-time county administrator for EMS in some of those places. They're relying on volunteers. So how do you get all of those people on board with that to be able to educate them, to be able to teach them, to be able to help them, to be able to, and it's all about helping each other. And I'm going to use, 2 eastern counties. One is got bukus of tax dollars, and then you got another one that's very rural that doesn't have a lot of tax dollars. They're not on equal playing fields with that. And how do you educate both of those not being on equal playing?
So, Walter, you've been able to listen to John and I go at it. like mom and dad arguing. So what do you, not saying the answer, but what do you think is the next step? What do you think, how do we prepare people for the room that they're not in?
I don't have a real good answer for that. I think you have to look at where you are and what you have and what you are going to and what you're going to do. And, it is and I know that's just a whole bunch of mumble jumble together, but, look at, yeah, you have to be in the seat where you are, know where it's been, know where it's going, know what you can and what you cannot. I mean, even some things that you say, I can go in one county and say something that's different than go in another county to be able to say that. So, I think, and I'm going to go back to the Terry, so, and the John both, is it's just like a paramedic again. You got to go in and read the room to figure out what you're going to do. I think you have to go in and read the room when you're a leader as well. So, do I see both sides of that? Yes, I see both of that, mom and pop, you two together. But I do think they have some same characteristics of that. But I think, it's very, and I'm going to use an example. It would be very hard for Terry to go to a small county that doesn't have a lot of funding. And Terry's like, we're parents. He's been Terry to me, Terrence to the rest of you. It's, hey, I'm used to having 11 ambulances and getting all new stations and getting money and getting transports and getting this to go to a little, small one county that has, 10,000 people that has zero tax base in rural North Carolina that has anything. As they told me one time, I was in the swampland of North Carolina. Well, that's what we have. We don't make money off of swampland. So, how do you do that and how do you learn that? I think you just have to try to figure it out. And you're going to make mistakes and just know that you're going to make mistakes with that. And I know John says you don't want to go in the room and make mistakes. You're going to go in the room and make mistakes. But I think trying to figure out the mistakes that you made and then learn from them so you don't make them again.
John, you got us into this. What's your closing argument? What's your closing statement in this?
Two different skill sets. That's why we failed at it for 40 years.
I don't necessarily disagree with you, actually.
How do you think we're going to get better in the next 40 years? I'm not going to be here to be able to see that, but how do you think we're going to get better in the next 40 years?
Plan, recognize that you got to read the room you're not in. That's what I think. I think you have to plan on seeing beyond those things. You can't use your paramedic training. You have to use the training you don't have, which means planning. You have to think, all right, what is my adversary? And I don't want to call them adversaries, but who am I trying to convince? Who am I trying to convince what to, and what am I going to use to get that point across? As a paramedic, I just got to convince this patient to go to the hospital, follow my instructions or whatever. That one person, I got to sell that to that one person. That's going to work fine because I got a protocol that I know I got a limit. I have a limit that I can't go past. I know I can't say these things. I know I have to do this. And at the end of the day, I also know they can sign a piece of paper and say no. But in management, you don't have that. You don't have a you
They
don't
got they got a piece of paper they can say no.
not to you. They have a piece of paper that they say no, that they're not going to fund or whatever the thing. But
Right,
but
right,
you don't know that. That's your goal though. And my goal
right.
sometimes as a paramedic ain't necessary whether you go to the hospital or not. It's whether I get you an outcome, in management, and I'm only looking, through a lens of I'm trying to convince politicians of something because I think that's a struggle. You sit me as a chief inside of a room of other captains who are also paramedics. That's a different conversation than me having to sit in a room where I have a human resources director, potentially a finance manager, a county manager, 6, 7 county commissioners, and some public. That's a whole different conversation to have. That's a lot of people that I'm gonna have to spin yarn with to understand. And those that have navigated that well are your successful EMS systems, and they'll tell you that. And those that have not figured that out yet are the ones that sit there with their head in their hand saying, "Oh, man, I really screwed the pooch on that because I thought like a paramedic."
So let me make it, one final I think to be successful in that, it makes me think, and I hadn't thought of this in a while, but in graduate school we had to do this project, and it was five of us from two of us in North Carolina, the other three folks were in Texas, and actually six of us because one person was international, and there were all these different parts of the project that had to be done, and one of the parts of the project that had to be done included a project management sheet that had to be done according to the college guidelines, and as luck would have it, one of the folks in our group, this guy Dimitri, that's what he did, is he did project management for an international work group. And so Dimitri handled that. There were other parts of the project Dimitri had absolutely no touch in. There were some things that I contributed to, and then there were some things where I was like, I don't really know what the heck I'm doing, but there's somebody else in the room. There's somebody else who was an expert in this. And so maybe before going in the room, having that conversation, hey, county manager, hey, finance director, hey, some of these other folks, having those conversations. I use it. What is that network to support you? So when you go into that room, you've got somebody that's able to help you read the room.